He plays the classic version of Superman. Not to get all too comic book and geeky, he plays the interpretation of Superman where Superman is the dominant personality and Clark Kent is the person he pretends to be. Personally, I see Superman the other way, because I figure he lives like Clark Kent 18 hours a day and is Superman for a limited period of time. Clark Kent would surely be the truer personality, but that's a whole other debate. But I do love the fact, and it's all down in the performance, Clark Kent and Superman in Christopher Reeve's performance are two completely different people. I know it's a massive suspension of disbelief. I know there's no way that you can, completely hide your identity by taking off your glasses. Look up in the sky, it's super lucha. It doesn't really work. But Christopher Reeve manages, through his performance, manages to help you suspend disbelief to that extent. It's so subtle, it's so nuanced. I mean, even from the way he stands with a slouch and stands up straighter when he's Superman. I mean, these are such small details, so obvious, but they really help you to transplant the character. And the other thing, and this is crucial for any actor playing Superman, Christopher Reeve has to spend a big portion of the time in bright blue, skin-tight spandex and a cape, and not feel self-conscious doing it. And Christopher Reeve does it. Superman's outfit in the flesh is technically ridiculous, and you need an actor who can sell that. And Christopher Reeve, bless him, does it. He's just Superman. Again, another anecdote from the making of documentaries is apparently the guy playing Jimmy Olsen, Mark McClure, whilst they're in the harness doing the flight sequences, which took quite a long time, Mark McClure starts goofing around because he's bored. Christopher Reeve apparently was just there, arm outstretched all the way through, going, stop messing around. He stayed in character all the time, and that really, really does translate to his performance. Which leads us to Lois Lane, who I think Margot Kidder, fair enough, not looking into what happened to her in later years in terms of her career or mental state, but I think that, she played the best Lois Lane. I think that Lois Lane's a difficult character to cast. In many ways, I would argue even more difficult than Superman, because when you look at Lois Lane, it's a character who is so enticing. She has managed to bewitch the most powerful man on the planet. That's literally what Lois Lane has meant to do. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of Lois Lanes are actually too attractive. I don't think Lois Lane is in any way meant to be thugly, but I think she's meant to be somewhat off-conventional. She's supposed to have it, that special something which has made Clark besotted with her. And I think Margot Kidder really does manage that, because whilst she's in no way thugly, not when she was a younger woman, she's not conventional looking. Her voice is quite, is very deep, and she's not the girly girl pretty type, and I really like that. She is able to stand up to Clark without being abrasive. And there's so much nailed in the subtleties of their relationship that you can really buy the romance. In just a few subtle exchanges, it's made clear in just their opening scene, she's fond of Clark, but, she doesn't see him in that way. I mean, that leads me to one of the best things in the movie, which is quite frankly the dialogue. The dialogue establishes so much about the characters so quickly and so well. One of the best lines about the film from the film is one that doesn't even concern any Superman stuff. It's brilliant. There's a scene where Clark says, can he have half of his paycheck sent to this address? And Lois, taking the piss, says, oh, is that for your sweet grey-haired old mother? And Clark, without missing a beat, says, actually, she's silver-haired. Clark's such a nice guy, and it could almost be portrayed as sappy in another movie, but in this you completely buy it, because at the end of the day, Superman or Clark is a nice guy. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love the character so much. I really do love the way that relationship is established. Of course, you have the bullet catch sequence, and that sequence in that part of the film really does play like a romantic comedy. Superman the Motion Picture is literally 4 movies in one, and the romantic comedy part does work pretty much. There are parts where it doesn't work. There's the awful part where they go for the night flight, which goes on far too long. I know that's supposed to establish romance and mystery, but there's the bit where she's like saying poetry as she's gliding through the sky. How that made it out of the editing suite, I have no idea. It should have been cut. On the director's cut, which was released, fair enough, I had the other stuff, but they should have cut that, but it's still there. But anyway, I digress. The actual scenes where you finally see him being super are, if you'll pardon the pun, what makes the movie take off and fly. The problem was they sold the movie without being able to know how to do it. The best way to describe that, it will be the tagline. They had the tagline. They said, "You'll believe a man can fly." And okay, so basically we have this film saying we promised that a man can fly. The teaser trailer showed basically no super stuff. It basically showed clouds, you know, clouds in the sky, and almost us seeing the clouds from Superman's point of view, and just coming soon, because they had no idea how they were going to make Superman fly. They promised it, and they had no idea how they were going to do it. Fortunately, they were able to develop rotoscope technology, which, whilst dated a little now, still works. I mean, that opening scene where you first see Superman reveal himself to the world. You know, you have the shirt ripping sequence, and you have the brilliant nod with the phone booth from the 1950s George Reeves show, where basically this version of Superman's like, that's not actually going to work. But the sequences where Superman is, for want of a better term, being super are good. They're very well done, and you buy them. And that is where the film works. The film tonally normally gets it right. There's a seriousness and a comedic lightness of touch in those scenes that's brilliant. For example, there's the scene where Superman catches the cat burglar, which is funny and shows off his powers really well. And by and large, those scenes work. That's where the comedic balance works. The part where the comedic balance doesn't work, unfortunately, would be in the introduction of the film's villain, Lex Luthor. And this, for me, is where the film slightly begins to fall down. Gene Hackman is fine as Lex Luthor, because you gotta remember, this was a version made in the late 70s. The character of Lex Luthor, as established then, was not the suave, untouchable multi-millionaire that, you know, fans know today. It was quite simply, mad scientist hates Superman. That was his brief. So he was a difficult character to flesh out at that point and make into a three-dimensional foil for Superman. Gene Hackman does that, and the way he does that is basically playing the character for dark laughs, which sometimes work. For example, the brilliant scene where he stood next to his mole, Miss Tessbacher, is like, doesn't it just give you a thrill to be stood next to me? I mean, that's funny, because the guy is so egotistical and borderline insane that you can understand why he would see someone as powerful as Superman, not so much as a threat. Just someone who can challenge me now, and that I buy. But there are awkward moments of black comedy that don't really gel. I don't really want to go beat for beat through the movie in this review, but one of the things I've always had a problem with is the missile sequence, where they're trying to steal the code for the missile, and there's a sequence that goes on far too long that establishes how they steal the missiles, and yeah, it's funny, but it really slows the movie along. And the thing with Superman, the movie, is it's a long movie. It's the best part of 2.5 hours. And there are, as much as I love the movie, there are sequences that could be cut, that I believe being one of them. Okay, next thing about the movie is, you have, of course, the Kryptonite sequence, which is very well done. The problem is Superman's a difficult character to write for in the comics, and he's a very difficult character to write for in movies, because, of course, movies you need dramatic tension, which you don't really have in Superman. You have that in the sequel, but I'll get onto that again when I do my Superman 2 review. So basically, it's kind of like, there's nothing that can hurt this guy, so where's the tension? Where's the drama? Where's the tension? With the Kryptonite, it's quite well done, and again, Christopher Reeve's performance when the Kryptonite's revealed, whilst he doesn't play it as it's making him sick, you get the idea that he doesn't want it anywhere near him, and I love it where you have that flash of fear that appears across the character's face. Alright, so finally, because I want to wrap up this review, you get to the ending, which is an ending which I feel is one of the best treatments of Superman on screen anywhere, period. Because we get to see through the ending, of course, because you get to see Lois die. And that's quite ballsy because, of course, there's the whole Superman going around the world and changing time. But I could sort of speak about it forever. The point is, if you're watching the movie for the first time, you literally see Lois suffocate horribly, and you see Superman fail. He's too late. He lives out his worst fear. Despite his powers, he has not been able to save the people he loved, like his dad. Again, establishing the fear that he will always be alone. And that's what I think I love about the movie, that, as I've said, that theme goes all the way through. But I love, and again, Christopher Reeve's performance, when he reaches Lois's corpse at that point, he screams, and it's sheer unadulterated rage. There is an interesting thing in Christopher Reeve's performance pretty much through the first movie and second, and I think carried on to a certain extent by Brandon Routh, but I'll talk about it in Superman Returns. A theme that's not always looked at in the comics. There is a certain undercurrent of anger in Christopher Reeve's performance. He's not entirely happy with his lot, and when Lois is taken from him, he's pissed. You know, he literally he flies around the world and changes time so that these things never happened. I'm not going to go on to the fact that how that's scientifically bullshit, because that can go on and on and on. Because basically the way I look at it, if you can believe a guy can fly, then you can suspend disbelief. But I think thematically it's quite interesting. The guy is so enraged, he breaks the one rule he was ever given. There's no consequences for that, which is kind of annoying. One of the movie's shortcomings, but still good. So anyway, to sum up, here's why I love the movie. It establishes a genre. Christopher Reeve is Superman. He may not be a generation Superman. I mean, fair play to Tom Welling, the guy from Smallville. He is Superman for a generation of kids, and fair play to him. Brandon Routh could have been a generation of kids Superman, but I don't think he will be. I don't think he'll get the chance. Like I say, established comic book movies showed how they could be played straight and appreciated, and just it treats the audience with intelligence and respect. I'm always going to have a soft spot for it because I saw it as a kid. There are a couple of people who are going to be giving it reviews on this channel, Cigarette Burns. I believe Liam and Ollie have never seen it, so it'll be interesting to see someone else's view of it who hasn't grown up with it, and whether or not it differs from my own. I would give Superman the movie, or Superman 1, a 9 out of 10. It's not perfect. Like I said, the Luthor villain is played too much for laughs, and the comedy tone sometimes consumes the rest of the movie. But so it's the first, and to a certain extent it's the best. It's almost certainly the most epic. I would say the only movie that comes close to that in terms of scale and grandeur would be, I don't know, Chris Nolan's work on The Dark Knight. I'm not sure who will be doing the next review for TCB. I think it might be DVD Weasel, Liam. So I will see you for when we have a look at Dick Donner's Superman 2. See ya.